Hi, I'm Mark Toby, and in this video I'm going to be busting some myths that has recently been circling around by some top-level fighter coaches and people who are working with fighters around their nutrition. That advice that has been propagated in the industry as of recently has been for fighters to have caffeine or coffee, specifically coffee, post-workout. Now folks, that is absolutely a terrible idea to have coffee post-workout, and I'll tell you why in just a sec. But the reason why these coaches are recommending that as a way is to help recovery, or to help at least glucose uptake inside the muscle. Now, the best way to help glucose uptake inside the muscle, well, there's two ways you can look at it, is one, have more carbohydrates, but two, keep your fighter relatively lean so their insulin sensitivity is good so they can handle the carbs, but also you don't need coffee exclusively to uptake more carbohydrates. So the logic behind it is very flawed, and we'll look at that in a sec as well. So the first point, or a couple of things I need to introduce first. I'm going to talk to you firstly about how cortisol works inside the body. Now, something we understand is cortisol is a blood glucose immobilizing hormone. So, and the reason why this is relevant is because when we have caffeine or we have coffee, if this is our blood glucose, right? And we have coffee, and this is why you do want to have coffee pre-workout, it's going to secrete a little bit of cortisol. Now, cortisol is a blood glucose immobilizing hormone, as well as a bunch of other things. There's a bunch of other roles in the body. I know I'm simplifying, but one of those things, it is a bit immunosuppressive to basically prepare you for the fight or the flight. So its job, it's a low form of adrenaline, and adrenaline obviously dumps glucose in your body, and it dumps it so you do something with that energy, either fight or flight. Now, if you're a fighter, that's great because you're going to be training. You're literally going to be fighting, and you're going to use that glucose. So cortisol is dumped in response, glucose is dumped in the bloodstream, and you're using that glucose. Fantastic. Now, if your blood glucose has gone down, if the logic there is, well, I'm going to increase cortisol again to increase blood glucose again, well, why would you rely on hormones to dump more glucose in the body? It's a very poor transaction. Why not just have more carbohydrate? Firstly. Secondly, we can't have a conversation around cortisol or training without talking about the nervous system, and specifically talking about the parasympathetic nervous system and the sympathetic nervous system. So if you're a fighter, you're probably going to spend most of your time in sympathetic, your nervous system, because you're going to be training, you're going to be on guard, you're going to be quite tense. A lot of guys who get into, who are fighters, they're quite stiff, they're quite tense all the time, and that's quite a normal response to being around guys who are constantly trying to punch you in the head. You pretend to stay on guard. But here's the deal, right? The more the sympathetic is pushed, the more we need the parasympathetic to come into play to enable us to recover and basically rest, relax, so we can adapt and recover to that training stimulus. So parasympathetic is responsible for rest, recovery, relaxation, and actually getting better from our training. So if we smash ourselves in the gym, sympathetic, we want the reverse. It's a yin-yang balance. If you just keep in this state of sympathetic nervous system, you are going to burn yourself out. And hell, you might have a great performance, and this advice of have caffeine after training, some guys might, be in their 20s, they might be doing it, let's say, for a couple of months, and they might feel great, but all of a sudden, boom, they just get into a hole that they can't get out of. It's because they're going to be burnt out. Their nervous system's going to be burnt out, and it's going to be very hard to recover from, because you can only sustain that for a very small period of time. The problem is that fighters and coaches, I suppose, who coach fighters will speak to the ego, stop being a pussy, stop doing this. It's absolute nonsense. You need recovery. And a point on that, there is a difference between recovering from a workout, and adapting from that workout. And whenever you have the choice, you want to choose to adapt to that workout rather than recover from that workout. And what I mean by the two is, you can use recovery methods such as ice baths, for example, which quench inflammation, quench all the damage, the punches that you took in that fight. But you're not going to get a hypertrophy effect. You're not going to get necessarily any stronger from that. You're just going to be able to repeat the effort and train again the next day, which if you're doing skills work or you've got multiple fights in the day, you need to get a lot of volume in, that might be exactly what you need to do at that period. But in the off season, you want to allow the body the time to recover and adapt from the workout, that when it comes time to push yourself in those workouts, you've got a little bit in store. So sensible training, sensible planning of any fighter, everything should be looked in context. And I don't know, because it wasn't stated, if this advice of caffeine post-training for fighters is something that they exclusively do, say for example in a BJJ tournament, if they're doing over the course of the day. That would kind of make sense, because they're going to be sympathetic for that, probably that whole day, and they're going to have multiple fights, so they're going to need a bit of a prep up before every fight. So I can see some application there, but then you send a confusing method with, if you're using ice baths and these kind of things. So it's not 100% a foolproof plan, but certainly in your day-to-day training, coffee or caffeine post-workout is absolutely 100% fucking bonkers. My name is Mark Atterbury. Till next time, train hard, supplement smart, and eat well.